Miami's hidden crisis reveals a paradise falling apart faster than anyone imagined, and what's happening right now could change everything you thought you knew about this iconic city. Once the crown jewel of American dreams, where Art Deco buildings kissed turquoise waters and millionaires built empires under endless sunshine, Miami now faces a collapse so profound that experts wonder if the magic can ever return. The beaches that once symbolized freedom now hide something darker beneath their golden sands. The skyline that promised limitless prosperity casts shadows over communities drowning in problems nobody wants to discuss. Why did this transformation happen so quickly, and what does it mean for the millions who call this place home? The answer might disturb you more than you expect, because what's destroying Miami isn't some distant threat or abstract concept. It's something far more intimate, far more human, and it's been hiding in plain sight all along. But wait until you see what they've been keeping from you. Picture Miami in the 1980s. Cocaine cowboys and neon lights painted a wild frontier. But underneath that chaos, something beautiful was taking shape. Families from Cuba, Haiti, Colombia, and every corner of Latin America built neighborhoods with their bare hands. Little Havana pulsed with domino games and cafecito, where elderly men and guayaberas debated politics while their grandchildren learned two languages simultaneously. Wynwood was just warehouses and working families, not the Instagram paradise it would become. South Beach stood as a retirement community, where Holocaust survivors and Jewish grandmothers lived modestly in Art Deco buildings that nobody yet considered treasures. The city breathed with authentic culture, not manufactured experiences. People knew their neighbors. They shared meals. They built communities that lasted generations. Miami wasn't perfect, but it was real. It belonged to the people who lived there, not the investors who would eventually devour it. Then came the transformation everyone celebrated without understanding its cost. Somewhere in the late 1990s and early 2000s, Miami discovered it could sell itself, not as a city, but as a brand, as a lifestyle, as an aspiration wrapped in palm trees and promise. Developers looked at those modest Art Deco buildings and saw gold mines. They gazed at working-class neighborhoods and envisioned luxury condos reaching toward heaven. International wealth managers saw tax advantages and tropical weather, a perfect combination for parking billions away from scrutiny. The city embraced this attention like a starving person grabbing food, never stopping to ask what they might lose in the feast. Magazine covers declared Miami the next great American city. Television shows portrayed it as glamorous, dangerous, sexy, alive. Everyone wanted a piece of this paradise, and Miami opened its arms wide. We all remember feeling excited about the growth. We all bought into the dream that prosperity would lift everyone. How could we have known the price? The numbers tell one story, but they can't capture what it feels like to watch your neighborhood disappear. Between 2000 and 2020, median home prices in Miami increased by over 300%, while median income grew by less than 60%. That mathematical gap represents something brutally simple. The city priced out its own people. Young professionals who grew up here discovered they couldn't afford to stay. Teachers, nurses, firefighters, the very people who make a city function found themselves pushed further from their workplaces. Families who lived in Miami Beach for 3 generations sold their homes because property taxes quintupled. The elderly woman who survived the Holocaust and spent 50 years in the same apartment received an eviction notice when her building went condo. This wasn't just economics. This was erasure. Every family forced out took their stories with them. The soul of the city leaked away one eviction notice at a time. But the wealthy arrivals didn't just bring money. They brought expectations that fundamentally changed what Miami meant. Luxury towers sprouted like metal reeds, each one taller and more ostentatious than the last. Buildings designed for maximum profit, minimum community. Condos purchased as investments, not homes. 50% occupancy rates became normal. Half the apartments sat empty most of the year. Dark windows staring over neighborhoods where people struggled to find affordable housing. The newcomers demanded Miami look like their fantasy, so the city complied. Local restaurants that served community for decades closed, replaced by celebrity chef concepts that lasted 18 months before the next trend arrived. Small businesses couldn't compete with chains that offered familiarity to tourists who wanted Miami in name only. Authentic culture became performance. Art galleries that once showcased local talent transformed into money laundering operations thinly disguised as high culture. The word artisan appeared everywhere, describing nothing. Greed didn't arrive wearing a villain's mask. It wore designer clothes and spoke eloquently about economic development. It promised jobs and prosperity while quietly extracting everything that made Miami special. Infrastructure tells the story of priorities. While luxury towers reached into clouds, the system supporting daily life crumbled beneath indifference. Miami's public transportation remains among the worst in any major American city, a deliberate choice that forces car dependency and isolates those too poor to afford vehicles. Metro Rail covers barely 25 miles in a metropolitan area spanning over 2,000 square miles. Buses arrive late or not at all, making it nearly impossible for service workers to maintain the multiple jobs they need just to survive. Roads crack and flood with increasing frequency, but repairs happen slowly in working neighborhoods while downtown streets get immediate attention. Schools in predominantly Black and Latino areas operate with outdated materials and overcrowded classrooms, while private institutions flourish. The message becomes crystal clear. Miami invests in what brings money, not what builds community. The shiny surface matters more than the foundation. This isn't accidental neglect. It's systematic abandonment of the people who actually make the city function. Every ignored pothole, every broken streetlight, every underfunded school broadcasts the same truth. You don't matter anymore. The paradise is for someone else now. And then there's climate change, the crisis everyone knows about and nobody acts upon with appropriate urgency. Miami sits at ground zero for sea level rise, built on porous limestone that allows water to bubble up from below no matter how high you build seawalls. King tides already flood streets regularly, turning neighborhoods into temporary lakes. Saltwater intrusion threatens the Biscayne Aquifer, the source of drinking water for millions. Scientists project major portions of Miami Beach underwater within 30 to 50 years, yet construction continues as if tomorrow will never arrive. Luxury developments advertise ocean views without mentioning that those views will eventually consume the buildings themselves. Insurance companies quietly retreat, understanding what developers refuse to acknowledge. The city's response? Elevate roads in wealthy areas while poor neighborhoods flood first and recover last. Install drainage systems in tourist zones while residents wade through contaminated water to reach their homes. Every hurricane season brings anxiety that intensifies yearly, yet the building boom never pauses. We've all seen the images of flooded streets. We've all felt that uncomfortable knowledge that something fundamental isn't sustainable. But addressing it requires sacrifice, and nobody wants to admit the party might be ending. Wait until you see who pays when reality finally demands its due. Meanwhile, the gentrification machine devours neighborhood after neighborhood with industrial efficiency. Liberty City, historically the heart of Miami's Black community, faces systematic displacement through rezoning and development that ignores existing residents. Overtown, once known as the Harlem of the South, where Billie Holiday and Count Basie performed, gets carved up by highways and development projects that benefit everyone except the people who live there. Little Haiti, rich with culture and resilience, becomes the next target for developers who see charm they can repackage and sell. The pattern repeats endlessly. First comes the artists and creatives, priced out of other areas, who inadvertently make neighborhoods cool. Then come the coffee shops and boutiques, then the luxury condos. Then the original residents get pushed out, and the culture that made the neighborhood special gets replaced by a sanitized simulation of itself. You felt this loss even if you don't live here. The homogenization of American cities into interchangeable playgrounds for the wealthy represents a cultural catastrophe we're all experiencing. Miami just demonstrates the process with particular ruthlessness. Every bodega replaced by a Whole Foods, every community center transformed into upscale lofts, represents not progress, but theft. The theft of place, of memory, of belonging. Crime tells its own story about inequality. While politicians trumpet declining overall crime rates, certain neighborhoods experience violence that never makes headlines. Food deserts plague areas where grocery stores fled. Health outcomes correlate precisely with zip codes. Life expectancy drops by 15 years between wealthy and poor neighborhoods. Maternal mortality rates in black communities rival those in developing nations. Children in Liberty City face asthma rates triple the national average, poisoned by proximity to highways. All while miles away, wealthy residents enjoy organic markets and boutique fitness studios. The paradise exists, but only if you can afford the entrance fee. We've all witnessed this inequality somewhere. Miami just makes the contrast particularly cruel. The cultural cost might be the most devastating and least discussed aspect of this transformation. Miami's unique identity emerged from its position as Latin American capital, Caribbean gateway, and Jewish refuge. That multicultural synthesis created something special, a place unlike anywhere else in America. But homogenization erases distinctiveness. When every city has the same luxury condos, the same corporate restaurants, the same manufactured downtown experience, what makes any place worth visiting or living in? Miami's music scene once incubated unique sounds from Miami bass to reggaeton fusion. Now venues close because noise complaints from new luxury residents take priority over cultural production. Art studios that nurture generations of talent get displaced by galleries selling investment pieces to people who never actually look at the art. The famous Calle Ocho Festival, celebrating Cuban culture, becomes increasingly commercialized and disconnected from the community it supposedly honors. Language itself gets commodified. Speaking Spanish shifts from lived experience to marketing tool. Being Cuban becomes a brand identity rather than a cultural heritage. You've seen this happen everywhere. The reduction of culture to content, of traditions to trends, of communities to demographics. Miami demonstrates what late-stage capitalism does to the concept of place itself. It extracts character and replaces it with capital. Housing presents the most visible crisis and the most damning indictment of priorities. Miami ranks as one of the least affordable cities in America, with median rent consuming over 50% of median income. That means half the population spends more than half their earnings just keeping a roof overhead, leaving nothing for savings, healthcare, education, or emergencies. One unexpected expense, one illness, one car repair can trigger a cascade into homelessness. And homelessness has exploded, though the city works hard to keep it invisible. Encampments get cleared regularly, not to help people, but to maintain the illusion of paradise for tourists and investors. The homeless get pushed from one location to another, hunted and harassed, but never actually assisted. Shelters overflow while luxury condos sit empty. The math makes no sense unless you understand that solving homelessness isn't the goal. Managing its visibility is. Affordable housing initiatives get announced with great fanfare, then quietly defunded or delayed. Projects include token affordable units that still cost more than median income can support. Developers receive tax breaks and incentives supposedly tied to providing affordable housing, then find creative ways to avoid those commitments while keeping the benefits. The system operates exactly as designed, transferring wealth upward while creating just enough confusion that nobody can pin down specific villains. But the result is undeniable. Working people cannot afford to live in the city they built and maintain. The COVID pandemic pulled back the curtain briefly, revealing how fragile Miami's economy really was. When tourism stopped, everything stopped. Hundreds of thousands of service workers lost jobs overnight with no safety net. Lines at food banks stretched for miles. Luxury cars mixed with beater vehicles, everyone desperate. The city's dependence on hospitality and real estate proved catastrophic when both collapsed simultaneously. Yet even this crisis became an opportunity for wealth extraction. While regular people faced eviction moratoriums and economic devastation, investors swooped in buying properties at discount rates. Remote workers from expensive cities discovered they could keep their Silicon Valley or Wall Street salaries while enjoying Miami's lack of state income tax and tropical weather. They drove up prices even further, competing for properties with cash offers that locals couldn't match. The pandemic revealed that Miami's prosperity was always conditional, always dependent on remaining attractive to people with money from elsewhere. The city produces remarkably little itself. It serves, it hosts, it facilitates, but it doesn't build sustainable industry or develop true resilience. When the music stops, and it will stop, what remains? Empty towers and displaced communities, beaches slowly sinking into rising seas, a hollow paradise that forgot to take care of its people while chasing endless growth. The environmental justice dimension cannot be ignored. Wealthier, whiter neighborhoods get million-dollar resilience projects, elevated roads, improved drainage, and comprehensive planning. Poor, predominantly black and brown neighborhoods flood regularly with toxic water that nobody rushes to pump out. They face heat island effects because developers cut down trees and covered everything in concrete, while wealthy areas maintain lush canopy cover. They breathe polluted air from highways, deliberately routed through their communities decades ago in racist urban planning decisions never corrected. When hurricanes strike, they lose power for weeks, while downtown restores in days. Recovery resources flow to areas with political power and property values, not to communities with the greatest need. This isn't accidental. Climate change impacts get distributed along existing lines of inequality, amplifying every injustice. The same populations exploited economically get sacrificed environmentally. We've all felt the unfairness of systems that protect the powerful while abandoning the vulnerable. Miami provides a laboratory example of how climate crisis and capitalism combine to create layered catastrophes. The paradise is sinking, but the lifeboats have assigned seating, and most people aren't on the list. Education demonstrates how inequality perpetuates across generations. Miami-Dade public schools face chronic underfunding and teacher shortages. Students in poor neighborhoods attend schools that feel like prisons, while private schools offer state-of-the-art everything. The achievement gap grows yearly, not because students lack potential, but because the system denies them resources. College remains financially impossible for many. Yet rather than addressing systemic inequality, the narrative focuses on individual responsibility. Work harder, make better choices, as if working 3 jobs isn't hard enough. Miami students deserve better, but deserving means nothing in a system that values profit over people. The small business apocalypse rarely gets the attention it deserves. For every successful restaurant or startup that makes headlines, dozens fail silently, crushed by rising rents, corporate competition, and an ecosystem rigged against them. The mom-and-pop shops that gave neighborhoods character cannot compete with chains that operate at loss for years to establish market dominance. Commercial landlords would rather keep properties empty waiting for corporate tenants than rent to local entrepreneurs at sustainable rates. Banks deny loans to anyone without perfect credit or significant collateral, while venture capital flows only to specific industries and demographics. The barriers to entry grow higher yearly, ensuring that wealth concentrates among those who already have it, while everyone else scrambles for scraps. This matters beyond economics. Small businesses create community. The baker who knows your kids' names. The mechanic who works with you on payment. The restaurant owner who sponsors the Little League team. These connections form the fabric that makes a place feel like home rather than just a location. When chains replace local businesses, that fabric tears. You've experienced this loss. The coffee shop where everybody knew you that got replaced by a Starbucks where nobody makes eye contact. The bookstore where staff recommended hidden gems that became an Amazon warehouse where algorithms make suggestions. Miami's transformation from community to commodity demonstrates this pattern with particular speed and savageness. The paradise becomes a shopping mall, sterile and soulless beneath its shiny surface. Healthcare inequity adds another devastating layer. Miami has world-class hospitals, but access depends on insurance and income. Wealthy residents get concierge medicine. Poor residents get emergency rooms and untreated conditions. Medical debt destroys financial stability. The pandemic highlighted these disparities brutally. Wealthy neighborhoods worked from home. Poor neighborhoods provided essential labor and got sick. Vaccination rates, testing access, treatment quality, everything followed predictable patterns of inequality. Miami's healthcare system works brilliantly if you have money. For everyone else, it's a maze of barriers designed more to protect profits than provide care. Political dysfunction ensures these problems never get addressed. Local government bends to developer interests and wealthy residents who fund campaigns. Corruption investigations appear regularly. Reform candidates occasionally get elected, then get absorbed into the system or blocked by entrenched interests. Voter turnout remains low because people correctly perceive that elections change little. Every so often, a scandal becomes too obvious to ignore. Someone goes to prison. Everyone expresses shock. Then the next corrupt official takes office, and the cycle continues. This system is designed to convert public good into private wealth, and it works exactly as intended. Transportation inequity connects to everything else. Without reliable public transit, poor residents cannot access jobs, healthcare, or education. They spend hours commuting, arriving exhausted. Miami's public transportation remains among the worst in any major American city, a deliberate choice. Metro Rail covers barely 25 miles in a metropolitan area spanning over 2,000 square miles. This isn't accidental. American cities built themselves around car dependency deliberately. Highway construction destroyed black neighborhoods. The result locks poor people into limited geography while the wealthy enjoy the entire metropolitan area. Transportation is freedom, and when that freedom gets restricted to those who can afford it, every other inequality amplifies. Art and culture once gave Miami its soul, but even that gets monetized. Wynwood transformed from working neighborhood to internationally famous arts district, which sounds successful until you examine who benefited. The artists who made Wynwood cool got priced out. The Puerto Rican families who lived there for generations got displaced. The authenticity that attracted visitors got replaced by Instagrammable murals commissioned by brands. Art became content. Culture became commodity. Musicians cannot afford to live in the city that inspired their music. Writers cannot afford the time and space to develop their craft. Meanwhile, the wealthy collect art as investment and congratulate themselves on supporting culture. But buying expensive art isn't supporting culture. Supporting culture means providing conditions where creativity can flourish. Affordable housing, time, space, community. Miami once offered those things. Now it offers Art Basel, where the global elite spend millions while local artists struggle to pay rent. The question that haunts all of this is whether any city can maintain its soul while pursuing unlimited growth. Economics demands expansion. Investors require returns. Politicians need development to show progress. Yet growth for growth's sake becomes cancerous, consuming everything in its path. Miami faces a fundamental choice disguised as inevitability. Continue the current trajectory of luxury development, tourist optimization, and wealth concentration until climate change and inequality combine to create catastrophic failure. Or reimagine what a city should be. Prioritize residents over investors. Choose sustainability over short-term profit. Build community instead of extracting from it. Value culture, not just culture industry. Create housing as homes, not investment vehicles. Develop transit that serves everyone, not just downtown commuters. Face climate reality with courage rather than denial. This transformation requires political will that seems impossible given current power dynamics. But impossible doesn't mean unnecessary. Every crisis contains the possibility of transformation. Every breaking point offers the chance to rebuild differently. The paradise is falling apart, but something else could emerge from the rubble. Something more equitable, more sustainable, more human. The choice belongs to everyone who calls Miami home, if they claim that power before it gets sold to the highest bidder. Empty tables in restaurants that once buzzed with neighborhood voices. Empty streets where children once played. Empty promises of prosperity that never reached the people who needed it most. Empty towers reaching toward empty skies. Monuments to wealth with no soul inside. Miami's hidden crisis isn't really hidden. It's everywhere, visible to anyone willing to look beyond the marketing materials and Instagram posts. The paradise never existed for everyone. It always had winners and losers, always sacrificed some people for others' pleasure. But the scale and speed of current extraction feels different, more desperate, more final. Climate change adds a ticking clock. Every year of inaction guarantees worse outcomes. Every delayed decision multiplies future costs. Yet the incentive structures reward ignoring long-term consequences for short-term gain. So the building continues. The pricing out accelerates. The culture depletes. And everyone pretends tomorrow will resemble today, that growth can continue forever on a foundation of sand and lies and rising water. Maybe there's still hope hidden somewhere between the luxury towers and the struggling neighborhoods. Maybe community resilience proves stronger than market forces. Maybe the next generation refuses to accept this manufactured paradise and demands something real. Maybe climate reality forces the transformation that justice couldn't. Or maybe Miami becomes a warning, a beautiful corpse floating in turquoise water, a monument to what happens when we value profit over people, appearance over substance, growth over sustainability, a city glowing in artificial light, beaches groomed daily to maintain the illusion, while beneath the surface everything crumbles and everyone who made it special flees or gets forced out. We saw it happen in real time, documented it on social media, liked posts about how beautiful it looked, and never asked who was paying the real price. It's time we remember what paradise actually means. Not luxury and exclusivity and carefully curated experiences. Not wealth concentration and cultural appropriation and environmental destruction, but community, belonging, care, sustainability, justice, the things that make a place worth living, not just worth visiting. Miami could become that place again, but only if enough people fight for it. Only if residents reclaim power from investors. Only if the collective good matters more than individual profit. Only if we decide that some things shouldn't be for sale. The hidden crisis is visible now. The question is whether we'll do anything about it or just watch the water rise until paradise sinks beneath waves that don't care about property values or brand identities or marketing campaigns. The choice belongs to all of us. The time to choose is running out. If you felt this change too, if you've watched your own city transform into something unrecognizable, share your story in the comments below. These patterns aren't unique to Miami. They're happening everywhere that capitalism encounters community. And if you found this eye-opening, subscribe, because the next story might reveal where everyone's going next when the paradise finally falls apart completely. The crisis is real. The solutions exist. What we lack is the collective will to choose people over profit. Maybe that changes. Maybe it doesn't. But at least now you know what's really happening beneath the surface of those perfect sunset photos. The paradise is falling apart. The only question is, what comes next?